Hi all, I'm Sakshi. So I'll be discussing the ninth question of the assignment, which says that there is a 2D array and I have to print this array in the spiral form. Okay, so let's see how I've done this. Okay, so what does it mean to print the array in the spiral form? It means that first I have to print this 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 8, then 12, then 16, then 15, 14, 13, 9, 5, then 6, 7, then 11, and then finally this. So this is the way I have to print my array, right? So what is the approach I have followed for this question is that is first I have printed that is I have printed the okay. So how I'm printing this array is I am printing four loops. One loop will print my left to right row. The second loop will print my top to bottom column. The third loop will print my right to left row, and my fourth loop will print from bottom to top this column. Right? The similar pattern I'll follow this inside this one, this inside array. There is one inside array, this one. The same pattern I'm going to follow with this one, right? Okay, so this is how I'm printing this array, right? So I've got like four pointers over here or four variables which are pointing to different locations. So one is the end start of row and start of column. You can see they're all pointing to 0, and the start of column is also pointing to 0. Now end of row it is pointing to 3 because 0, 1, 2, 3. So end of row, because there are total how many rows? 4. So 4 minus 3. So end of row is now 3. Right? Now, so end of row is pointing to this. End of row is now pointing to this third row, and end of column is now pointing to this third column. Okay, let's see. While the start of the column, what is the value of start of the column? The value of start of the column is 0. This is also 0. This is 3. So we enter into a while loop where if the start of the column is less than end of the column. That is start of the column is end is less than end of the column. Yes, this is 2. That is 0 is less than 3. And also and start of the row it is less than end of the row. That is 0 is less than 3. So we'll proceed further to print our first row. Okay. So for I is equals to start of the column. Start of the column, what is the start of the column is 0 and end of the column is 3. So I have to print from 0 to 3. So here I am printing from 0 to 3. Right? Start of the row. So where I am printing. I am printing I'm printing the value of array. That is I'm writing the value of array whose row is equals to 6. Row is equal to, that is every time I'm printing in the first loop I'm printing a of start of the row is 0, and every time my column is, let's say for I is equal to, what is the start of the column? 0. 0. So I'll be printing a 0 comma a 0 comma 1 because start of the row will be 6. Now I become 1. Then I'll be printing a 0 2 and printing a 0. So these are the variables that I'll be printing over here. So what are these variables? I've got here 1, 2, 3, 4. So these variables I'm printing over here. So when I'm done printing these array, I'll just decrement the end of the column, right? So my end of the column now becomes, initially it was 3, so now it becomes 2. So now my end of the column, instead of pointing it to this thing, it will now point to this column, right? Because this column is anyway printed. So now this column is anyway printed, so now it's going to point to this column. Now I'll be printing my last column, right? This is 1, 2, 3, 4 is printed. Now I'll be printing my last column from start of the row to end of the row. Start of the row to end of the row, right? So what will be fixed? My column will be fixed. Sorry, I've commented this line, so my end of the column is still pointing to this array. I was just experimenting with something, and yeah. So I have not. My end of the column is still 3, right? So I'll be pointing from start of the row to end of the row, right? Start of the row to end of the row. So what I'll be printing? I'll be printing I. I is the start of the row, that is 0. So what I'll be printing now? A of 0. What is the value of start of the row? Start of the row is 0, comma, and what is the end of the column? In this column, I have printed from, where is this column? I is less than equal to end of the column. 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So here I'll be printing now A of I. So I'll be printing all the elements from start of the row to end of the row, right? So I'll be printing 0, comma, start of the row. What is the value of start of the row? Start of the row is, okay. So here after this first loop, this is what I was thinking. After this first loop, I have implemented this start of the row. So initially start of the row was 0. This is after printing this row, I have incremented this row because I need to now start printing end of the column from here. So now my start of the row, it is not pointing to this row, but it is now pointing to this row, right? So I'm printing from, that is start of the row. Start of the row is, that is, it has now, its start of the row value becomes 1. I'm printing now start of the row, that is A of I. What is the value of I? I is equal to 1, right? So I'm printing now I, that is 1, comma, what is the end of the column? End of the column is still 3. So I'm printing A 1, comma 3, A 2, comma 3, and A3, comma 3. So this is what I am printing now. A1, comma 3, 2, comma 3, 3. What is this value? So after 4, I'll be printing 8, 12, and 16. Right? So after printing the last column, I am decrementing this end of the column. Now I am decrementing this end of the column. Right? Now this end of the column will be pointing to this thing. Now value of end of the column will become 2. Value of start of the row is 1. Now I have to print these values, right? So now I'll be printing from end of the column to start of the column, right? Start of the column. So now I'll be printing the last row. You can see now I'll be printing the last row. Last row, it says from end of the column. End of the column is 2. That is from 2 to start of the column. Start of the column is 0. That is from 2 to 0. And I'll be I'll be decrementing every time. So what I'll be printing now? I'll be printing A. Oh, so sorry. I'll be just zoom out a little so that things are visible actually. Yeah. So I I'll be printing now I printed the last column. I was here actually. I'm now printing the last row actually. Yeah. In the last row, I'll be printing from end of the column to start of the column. So I'm not used to this thing. I don't know how to zoom it out a little so that I have no idea how to zoom it up. I don't know how to zoom it up actually. Oh gosh. Okay, fine. So now I'll be printing from end of the that is from end of the column, and my end of the column is now pointing to this row, right? I'll just try once again. Yeah, I could now. Okay, it's a little bit visible now, right? Now I'll be printing my last row from end of the column to the start of the column. So, last row it will say that from I is equals to 0 to end of the column. That is end of the column is now pointing to 2 and start of the column is now, the start of the column is 0. So I'll be printing from 0 to 2. So what I'll be printing right now here, A, end of the row, comma I. End of the row is, what is end of the row? End of the row is 3. 3, comma, and what is the value of I? End of the column. 3, comma 2, 3, comma 1, and 3, comma 0. So I'll be printing these elements 15, 14, and 13. So initially I got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I got 8, 12, 16, 8, 12, 16, and now I got 15, 14, 13. 15, 14, and 13. Right? After this, after printing end of the row, I am decrementing end of the row. So my end of the row is now decremented. So my end of the row is now pointing to this row. It is now pointing to this row. Now I'll be printing this first column. So for printing the first column, what I'll do, I'll start from end of the row. That is from 3 to start of the row. End of the row to start of the row. What is the start of the row is 1, and this is 2. So from 2 to 1. So what I'll be printing, A, 2 to 1 will be, start of the column will be 6, that is 0, comma 2, comma 0, and 2, comma 1. Right? Start of till the start of the row. What is 2, comma 0? 9 and 5. I'll get 9 and I'll get 5. Right? Okay. Now we are again going to set the condition that while the start of the column, now what is the, start of the column, now I am incrementing. Now my start of the column is now incremented, and now my start of the column will be pointing to this column. So what is the value start of the column? Start of the column has value 1, start of the row has value 1, end of the row has value 2. Okay. So I'm checking my start of the column is less than end of the column. That is start of the column. It is less than end. Yes, 1 is less than 2. Also, start of the row, that is this row, it should be less than end of the row. Okay, this is 1 and this is 2. So both the conditions satisfied. Okay, now when both the conditions satisfied, we'll be iterating through these loop again. Now we'll be printing our first row. That is, this is our first row now. And we'll be starting from start of the column. Start of the column is 1 and end of the column is 2. So we'll be printing from the 6 and 7. 6 and 7. So after printing this, we will be updating our start of the row. Now my start of the row is pointing again to my start of the row is, instead of pointing here, start of the row is now pointing here, right? It's now pointing to this row, right? Start of the row is now pointing to this place, that is 6 and what was the value of start of the row initially? Start of the row was 1 initially. Okay, start of the row was 1 initially. Now it is going, then it incremented. Now it points to this value, that is wherever this 10 and 11 are written. Now I'll be pointing this second column over here. What is this column over here? That is 7 and 11. So I'll be iterating to this last column, that is start of the row. What is the start of the row? Start of the row is now pointing to this this position, that is 0, 1, 2. Start of the row is now 2. Value of start of the row is 2 because in the previous one we have decremented it. This is 2, and what is the end of the row? End of the row is also 2. So nothing will be printed, right? Because both the values are equal. So nothing will be printed. We won't be printing anything over here. Now at the end of this, we will be decrementing our end of the column, right? Okay, yeah, so one value will be printed because there is an equal sign, so we'll be printing this one value. The loop will run only once and it is going to print. What it is going to print? It is going to print this from 3 to 3, it is going to print this 11 now, right? After printing this 11, now I am again decrementing this end of the column, and now end of the column will now point to this position, right? So it becomes 1. End of the column now becomes 1. Now I'll be printing this column, that is 10. Now for printing this column, sorry, I'll be printing this row now, right? This row. This is printed, this is printed, I'll be printing this row now. Okay, so end of the column. What is the value of end of the column? It is 1. Start of the column is also 1. The loop will run only once, and the value that is printed is end of the row, comma I. That is 1, comma 1, comma 1. So the value that will be printed will be this. End of the row value is 2. Sorry, end of the value is 2, and end of the column is 1. So value that will be printed is 2, comma 1. What is this? 0, 1, 2, 2, comma 1 value will be printed. So 10 will be printed here, right? 10 will be printed here. Similarly, now end of the row will be decremented. End of the row will be further decremented. Now end of the row value will become 1. Start of the row is 2, end of the row will become 1. Now we'll go to this last column. I is equals to end of the row. What is the end of the row? Is 1. And I is equals to start of the row is 2. So this loop won't work, right? So nothing will be printed here. Now we will go to the while condition over here. Start of the column is 1. Is less than end of the column? No. Start of the row is 2. It is less than end of the row? 2. No. So this condition doesn't work. So this loop will break. So this is how all the values are printed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 12, 16, 15, 14, 13, and after 13, 9, 5, and after 9, 5, 6, 7, 11, and 10. So this is how all the values are printed using this method. So we are first printing, using for loop, we are printing the outer matrix rows and columns, and similarly we are also printing the inner matrix rows and columns. So like this, any number of any order matrix can be printed into different rows and columns. So now let's discuss the time complexity and the space complexity. time complexity is equal to O of n because we are traversing each element once, right? Now the space each element in the array once. So the space complexity is equal to O of n because we don't need any extra space to store anything. Like except these 4 pointers, we don't need any other space, right? So thank you. It was a tricky question.